painted a lot of people. Recently, I've painted Charles Dickens,
Tattooed girls,
Tupac,
tattooed guys,
Margaret Kilgallen,
religious figures,
Biggie Smalls,
the Buddha,
regal people,
and those are the people that I'm interested in.
all people.
Those are my people.
I paint working class people as a way to glorify, you know, the everyday man.
People who really stepped out of their culture and understanding things like love and relationship and compassion. Those people are really, really inspiring to me. I wish I could be as bold as someone like Gandhi or Jesus. That's my working class, let's say. You know, the self-made folks.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us, we had nothing before us. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way. Charles Dickens by Mike Maxwell.
San Francisco artist Mike Giant was born a giant, his mother says, in upstate New York. After that, drawing, New Mexico, graffiti, heavy metal, skateboarding, punk rock, hip-hop, college, Thailand, London, America. Fuck yeah. Dharma, tattooing, Skulls Press, track bikes, Brook, and Rebel 8. His homeboy, San Diego artist Mike Maxwell, was born to question authority, his mother says, in El Cajon, California. After that, drawing, painting with Grandpa Gene, high school, marijuana, flunked out of PE class, La Jolla Beach, Mexican food, skateboarding, painting, tattoos by Mike Giant, and his dog Pete. This is their tale, and the tale of the cities they call home.
A little bit about how you know Maxwell.
Woo, shit. I guess, when did I meet Mike? Damn, I can't remember now. It's been a long time. I can't even remember how I met him.
I started following Mike's work in high school.
And then I think, God, when would Mike have come into the picture?
One artist kept like popping out of all the, you know, hundreds of pieces that are on a single page, and it was Mike's stuff.
Yeah, it's really hard to narrow it down. I wonder if Mike knows. I'll have to, did he say?
I started working with Shepard Fairey at Black Market, and Mike had already been friends with them for some period of time, and we just connected through those avenues. And probably 2099, I went up to San Francisco and got tattooed. So that was when we met initially.
You know, because a lot of people come to me for tattoos too, and I forget if that's how the initial contact is made, or if it's...
Actually, you know what initially attracted me to his work with his graffiti was his symmetry. His pieces, especially in like the mid-90s and up until the 99, 2000 era, he would really focus on making pieces symmetrical. So his G and I would look like his N and T, and then the A would always be like the middle piece.
Oh, right, the bubble letters. Yeah, that's rad. That's super rad. I didn't know that. That's cool.
The one thing that stands out right away with Mike's work is the quality of line.
I think the big similarity between the two of us is the line unit quality. We both work with portraiture a lot too, I suppose.
We both do a lot of portraiture. It takes a long time to figure out how to turn a face into just line work. The things I really enjoy in Mike's work and something I enjoy doing in my work is the sort of simplification of the human face. When it comes down to doing line work and trying to simplify a face, you really have to figure out how to make it look three-dimensional while at the same time having it be flat.
But he definitely uses a lot more color. I try to avoid color just because I don't see it very well. I'm red-green colorblind, so I don't see subtleties in tone and hue. Like, I can see the primaries and the secondary colors pretty well, but into the third level, the tertiary colors, where the secondaries get mixed up, I really get confused. I can't see them very well at all. You know, and I think that's something that I like about Mike's work, is that he uses a palette that I like. You know, he keeps it fairly simple, kind of toned down. I think of, you know, really kind of like worked colors that are rich.
The blue has sort of been an evolution over time as a way to erase race. I believe that we're all made up of all the same stuff, and just our skin on the outside is really just a geographical indication of where our ancestors came from. But when you look at it, you know, what we're made up of genetically, we're all pretty much the same animal.
I see a lot of parallels in his work to the Mexican sign painting tradition, in really good ways, you know, down to the colors and, you know, that kind of worn look. I'm super into that, you know. I hadn't really thought of that before. But Mike's work definitely has that appeal to me.
Maybe I'll make them red next year. I don't know.
What the fuck is that, right?
Yeah.
They have rating systems, right? You can have fucking 150 straight up bloody murders in your movie, but yo, titties, oh, not cool. What the fuck? Are you it makes me angry, honestly. It makes me want to punch people out.
We're very different people. Like, our thoughts on things are often opposite. Violence is just one of those tools that helps you, you know. Some people are smart and can do it with their brains. They can get people to do what they want the way they want them to do it. And some people aren't so smart.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes metaphorical. Like, I'm dedicated to nonviolence, but, you know, it's like it infuriates me. It makes me want to rise into action. And my action is to do it creatively.
I've been working on, you know, staying centered, being calm, staying relaxed, take a deep breath and relax. And, you know, if I just think about him being nonviolent, you know, I could relate it to myself a little bit. And, you know, yeah, I think he's a good role model.
My family took us to San Diego the first time in, I think, around '84. That first trip in '84 was when I saw like real people real skateboarding going on. And then went back to New Mexico and got myself a skateboard from Price Club and got to it. And then went back to San Diego again the next summer and realized that all my equipment was super whack and corny, and, you know, got schooled a little bit. San Diego's always had a great art scene as far as I'm concerned. Like, as far as lowrider art and cholo stuff and graffiti stuff, you know, stuff I care about. Tattoos, of course, you know, it's another port city. It's got a long tattoo history. When I started to travel to San Diego, in the early 90s with some friends. That's when I learned a lot of technical spray painting techniques from the San Diego writers. It really showed us, you know, how to use the paint, how to use your finger, and how to carve special caps to give you different lines and all kinds of different things that we hadn't even imagined yet, you know. And a lot of our San Diego friends would come to Albuquerque too pretty often and hang out with us. So it was a real kind of community there in a weird way, you know. Just had to jump across Arizona to get there. It's California. The rest of the country sees us as just this one big crazy place full of nutcases and stoners, you know.
Straight out of Frisco, taking out Larry's. Straight out of Frisco, taking out Larry's.
Right about now, it's about that time for the master of the rhyme to get on up out of here, you know.
I mean, San Francisco gets a lot of shit from the rest of the country for being really like, you know, Whole Foods, you know, and everybody's gay and fucking, you know, hipsters everywhere on track bikes. You know, it's just like, I don't know, it's rad actually, you know, fuck the rest of America if they don't like it. You know, you don't know what you're missing. It's actually super nice. The city planner, from the stories that I've read, was pretty much just a drunk, and he was supposed to figure out the layout of all the streets as they were starting to divvy up the land for developers. And he said, grid, we're gonna grid out the whole city. And they're like, yeah, but what about the hills, the crazy topography? He's like, screw it, grid it. And in the end, that's what made the city so cool, is because the streets go straight up the fucking hills, you know? And they had to make the cable car to be able to pull a train up it. It's Victorian architecture. It's called Victorian because it was based on real Victorian architecture made out of stone from England, right? Like you go to London and that's real Victorian architecture. It's all stone. So they were like, well, we're gonna have this crazy gold rush city and we're gonna do fake Victorian architecture. We're gonna build it all out of wood and we're gonna paint it to look like stone. It was all fake. It's like Vegas. San Francisco, so like Vegas. It's not really the best way to design a city. It worked really good. This will get me in trouble. I think Southern California is a bit more about the flash and the polish. Up here, it's a bit more, I don't know, theoretical or deeper. I don't know how to articulate that, you know?
It's sort of competitive here because there aren't a lot of venues to display your stuff. You really got to stand out even more because, I mean, we're competing with Los Angeles and San Francisco on the West Coast, and to stand out among the standouts of those cities, you really got to bring your A game. The skate and surf community is huge here. I know, like growing up, I used to draw all the old skateboard graphics. A ton of different mediums, people doing all sorts of different projects. There's a lot of support for young artists, people coming up.
And she sang that he had never really meant a thing. And this is what she said.
consider San Francisco to be my sister city, my second home of sorts. Because San Francisco is so supportive of their artists, they actually get really psyched to see outside artists come into the town. And they could tell when somebody's from outside of the city. Going to San Francisco for the first time was an extreme culture shock. I was living in Mammoth. I had already done like a full winter there. And like I was living in the middle of nowhere, like in this little cabin with a bunch of stinky dudes. And that was like a really short trip. I was in, got tattooed, like we vandalized some stuff and got out of there like the next day or something. Oh, dude, you're gonna get me on tape saying this? San Francisco has better Mexican food than San Diego. It's insane, dude. I know, it's insane. Besides fish tacos, they can't fuck with our fish tacos. Because everyone who comes down from San Francisco, when they want to get Mexican food, they always get fish tacos. Guaranteed.
The fish tacos in San Diego, that would be the first fucking thing I'd get every time I went there. It's like apples and oranges, to be honest. Yeah, you can't mess with the veggie burrito from the Mission, though. You know? It starts with an interest in self-investigation, an investigation in the things around me. And in that, then I will educate myself about different cultures, different times, and how they were understanding the same deeper questions that I have. And then I pick up their iconography, you know, their style and their way of writing and all that kind of stuff, and I try to work on that. Usually, I'll have an idea in the shower in the morning, is usually how the ideas end up coming to fruition, almost as if the dream state is playing with all these different images that I've consumed over my whole lifetime. And then in the morning in the shower, as I'm waking up and my mind is really active, the pictures start to show up. Then I will sketch it. You know, I make composite in Photoshop and get things roughly kind of how I want, you know, at least figuratively. And then I'll print that out and I'll get some trace paper out and I'll start penciling in the details, flush things out. I may have to go back to the computer, like photograph the sketch and put that back in the computer and take that apart, blow things up, make things smaller, flip shit over, whatever. Print it out again, another layer of tracing paper, work it out in multiple layers of paper until I get to a line drawing. That would be like the line drawing I show a tattoo client for like the design. I still kind of work in that mode. Once I have that, I tape that to a back of a clean sheet of white paper, put it on the light box and go right in with the pens and just put black ink right on the paper and try not to put any pencil marks on the paper at all until the signature right at the end. I do all that from start to finish in one day. That's the shit.
Check that out.
I wasn't ever satisfied with my freehand drawings of people. Forever now, it seems like. I've always started by tracing the contours of a photographic image to get the component parts. That first step is controversial this day and age. People want to believe that the paintings that they see in a museum were just some guy just like not using any special tools at all. But really, some of the best like lifelike paintings there are out there, you know, more realism, portraiture in particular, was lens-based. They were using camera obscuras that would send a flipped image that would go on a piece of glass, and then the artist would put a piece of paper over the glass and quickly trace the contours. As artists started to understand that some of the greatest things that they'd seen and that were, you know, really looked up to in the museums were really just, polished technical paintings. And there was a lot of rebellion against that.
I seen Rembrandt do it.
Once the photograph came, it was like, oh, well, yeah, that's cool what you guys are doing with that little machine, but gee, what now?
We were walking in a circle hand in hand, and your feet were sinking deeper in the sand than mine. You had sold me a mansion in your head.
My process starts with a search for imagery. I've been collecting turn-of-the-century photographs, probably Civil War era to around the 30s. I find these images, I'm on a constant search for new stuff all the time. It's become a sort of obsession. In the same way a DJ would go searching for records, I look at thousands and thousands of photos and one will just stand out to me as if the image is choosing me as opposed to me choosing the image.
That could be my great-grandfather for all I know.
So after I've collected a large number of images, I'll go through and look at everything over a period of time and try to find the reference material that fits a particular story I want to tell. I have some preconceived notions about what I'm going to do, but I sort of let the wall dictate to me what's going to happen as we get going. You know you're going to run into issues that you didn't expect. You're going to have to cross certain bridges you didn't expect to. So it's kind of, you can make as many plans as you want, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to follow. We're going to continue with the beard. I got to do a few more highlight tones. We're going to get some brown oranges in there, some orange browns. Then I'm going to go back through with the black and detail out everything. This was everyone who's ever existed all put together as one. So it's all of us as one singular, large-headed, bearded fellow. I paint the same painting every time, even though I'm telling a different story and the images are different. The processes are always the same in that I'm working from the back forward, and each layer that I create is interdependent upon each other. I always leave the eyes for last. They're always black throughout the whole process. It's like the last piece of a jigsaw puzzle that you've worked countless hours on. It's the piece that really brings the portraits to life. There's a sort of dead lifelessness to them up until that color gets in there. And it's something that really draws the viewers in.
And I would hold the phone, so you were not alone.
He saw a young lady of not more than 17 in a riding cloak, and still holding her straw traveling hat by its ribbon in her hand, as his eyes rested on a short, slight, pretty figure, a quantity of golden hair, a pair of blue eyes that met his own with an inquiring look, and a forehead with a singular capacity of lifting and knitting itself into an expression of bright, fixed attention. He made his formal bow to Miss Monet.
My name is Shani, and I'm from the Keep a Breast Foundation, and we are a nonprofit organization that educates young people about breast cancer prevention and early detection. And one of the main things that we do is we work with wonderful artists like Mike here. We work with artists around the world, and what they do is they paint breasts. The most recent piece that Mike painted is a really special piece. The cast is of a woman named Stacey Margetts, who lost her mother to breast cancer when she was young. And Mike had decided that he wanted to paint a portrait of Margaret Kilgallen on this piece. And when he first told me that, honestly, I was like, that's pretty brave. You know, Margaret, she had lost her battle to breast cancer recently after her daughter was born, and it just fit with the story of the Casti as well. And Mike just, you know, always rises to the occasion.
Daisy's got a little drop of blood. Shake, shake, Daisy had some song.
Mike Giant painted a cast of a woman named Amanda Nixon, who is a breast cancer survivor. Amanda's really cool. She's like the super hip, kind of like vintage vixen, like her style is kind of pin-up, and I just tried to pair her with an artist who I thought she would really love her cast. And so I thought of Mike Giant, and I think the phrase that he painted on the cast, it says, "No gain, no loss, only change," which I felt was just a really interesting, like, viewpoint from a man. You know, here's this guy who, obviously, he doesn't have breast cancer, and I don't know if he's personally been affected by breast cancer, but for him to paint something so just intuitive and really interesting, because that goes with Amanda's personality. She's really just taken her disease. She really uses, you know, what she's gone through to help other people.
I find Mike Giant to be a really provocative artist, that his portrayal of women is interesting in a number of different aspects. It is clear from some of his work that he has a deep regard for women, appreciates a strength in women, and sees beauty in different kinds of women. But then in other drawings, really disturbing that women's bodies are being idealized or manipulated in ways, guns and images of, you know, ice picks and knives. My initial impressions of the picture are that it's really disturbing. She's beautiful, but it's sort of hypersexualized. This position that she is sitting in isn't a position that a person could sit in. She doesn't have any butt at all. Lots and lots of guns, and the slogans, "Love thy neighbor," "Never surrender," "Lock down." And I imagine that there's a lot here that I just don't know. Because some of this is clearly referring to some sort of street culture or gang culture that I'm not acquainted with. Oh, and she doesn't have any panties on, component to it.
This one is the one in question. I don't know. I mean, first of all, formally, it's just a provocative pose. You know, I mean, normally a woman, you're just seeing them kind of straight on, or, you know, waist up, or just kind of straight. So to have these kinds of lines like this is really the thing that caught my eye initially. Obviously, the pose is really provocative with the underwear hanging down here, but I like that. If her fucking underwear is over here, it's definitely not over here. You know? That's just, I like the stories in that. I guess all the tattoos, the "Love thy neighbor," "Damaged," those are, "Damaged" is certainly a reference to an ex-girlfriend. I would say they're still always about me. You know, they're not girls that I see, you know. I don't see girls tattooed with this kind of stuff so much. And when I do, I'm scared shitless of them. The girls that I have met that have big shotgun tattoos are usually pretty sketchy. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I'm personally really not into weapons at all. But it's an undeniable fact of the culture. And I think by bringing it up, hopefully people will be like, "Hey, Mike, what's up with the guns?" "Oh, I hate guns." You know? And then I can go off in my diatribe about why I think guns suck.
This is Lindsay, and is apparently the model that inspired the Welcome to Frisco drawing, with the short hair and glasses, which is beautiful, but it's beautiful in a hipster sort of sense instead of in a traditionally blonde hair, blue eyes.
Mike loves women, and Mike loves a dominant girl, and I think he loves emphasizing empowering them on paper. The way Mike drew me made me look like this amazing, beautiful girl who I don't really see myself as, but the way he saw me and drew me, I was like, wow, he made me look really hot. I really like this. He puts a look on the girls' faces that are like, I don't give a fuck. This is me, and you're looking at this picture and you like what you see. So I think of it as he's empowering the girl to be like, this is me and I'm awesome.
Art both reflects what a culture thinks is beautiful and shapes what a culture thinks is beautiful, so that artists have influence in determining what people see as beautiful, or that they allow a culture to look through their eyes and see what they see as beautiful.
I just draw the things that are important in my life, you know? Women are paramount, you know? A group of girls will come up and be like, damn, what's up with the girls with all the tattoos? That's kind of, I don't know, that looks just not kind of, that doesn't look right. Those girls look super tough and mean, you know, and I don't like that, you know? And then they'll move on. And then a group of tattooed girls will walk up and be like, fuck, those tattoos are so cool. Holy shit, that girl looks badass, you know? Damn, I want to look like that. Look at that fucking anchor right there. I want to put one there. Oh, that's a good idea. And then they move on, you know? And then a group of guys comes up and is like, yeah, bro, I don't like these tat chicks, man. It's just kind of fucked up, man. There's hella tat chicks in this place. Move on, you know? And then I'm like, oh yeah, tattoo girl, fuck yeah. Empowered, fuck yeah, right? It depends. It totally depends, you know? And it's not my responsibility. That's really on the individual, you know, solely.
I see a beautiful city and a brilliant people rising from this abyss, and in their struggles to be truly free, in their triumphs and defeats, through long years to come, through the long ranks of the new oppressors who have risen on the destruction of the old, I see the evil of this time and of the previous time of which this is the natural birth, gradually making atonement for itself and repeating history.
History in terms of my painting work, it's played a pretty influential role on me over the last 4 or 5 years now. Something about getting a little bit older, I started to reflect on my own past. I think it's important to know where things came from to really truly understand what things are. Just even looking at our national holidays, a lot of people don't even really understand why we have certain holidays and what they truly mean. As opposed to what they have become. For instance, Labor Day. I asked a good 10 people if they knew what they were celebrating on Labor Day, and not one of them had the answer. They really didn't know. They just thought that it was a day to give people a day off of work to go drink beers on the beach. And the reality is that it's a lot more than that, and it's actually about a tragedy.
Labor Day was instituted as a national holiday in the United States. It was in response to the Pullman strike in New York, which occurred several days earlier by the workers at the Pullman coach company, railroad company, because of a recession in the United States at the time. Pullman decided to cut their salaries but did not cut their rent or living expenses in the city of Pullman, which was run by the Pullman car company itself. The working class were basically striking for a living wage. Federal marshals came in at the time to break it up, and it was at that point that there was a confrontation. 13 were killed at the Pullman strike. And it's still known throughout the world as being a holiday that they celebrate for labor that originated in the United States, and most people know the history behind it. However, here in this country, we don't.
Historically, it seems that the only way you could get represented in art was to be rich. And what Mike has done is in many ways, he's breaking open the portraiture world to have access for the working class, for people who in the past would not have been depicted because there was a consideration that you had to be somebody.
You know, there's a hipster fascination with facial hair now, and people will look at that in Mike's work and go, oh man, that's hilarious or ironic. And yet this was like the regal look of a man of the day. And whether it's politics, whether it's economics, whether it's religion, history, survival, artists have been doing the same subjects and treating the same subjects and trying to express those subjects as far as we can go back and see it. And I think they will be forever. I think that's the art experience, that's the human experience.
A boy winning his way up in that path of life which once was mine. I see him winning it so well that my family name is made illustrious there by the light of that little child. I see the blots I threw upon it faded away. I see him foremost of just judges and honored men, bringing a boy of my name with a forehead that I know and golden hair to this place, and I hear him tell the child my story with a tender and faltering voice.
Well, from what I'm told, I've been creative my entire life, so my mother says. You know, she was my #1 influence. She was a super talented artist, could draw anything, you know, and make it look exactly like what it was.
I would draw trees, I would draw animals, I would draw people. I just always drew. And then when Mike was born, I guess he, you know, got to be about 5, I guess, and he would watch me draw. And he would want to draw just like me. And he would bring me pictures that really weren't that good for, you know, it was a 5-year-old drawing a picture. And he'd say to me, and he would get very frustrated. He would say, I want to be just like you, Mom. And so I asked him one day, I said, look at your thumb and draw your thumb for me. So he did, and he brought it back in 2 seconds. And I said, well, look, it's just a shape. I said, really look at your thumb for me and draw it again. And he did this for hours until he finally brought it back to me, and it had the thumbnail, it had the lines in the finger. And I think from that moment on, he caught on, and he's always drawn just like me.
At a young age, I did a set of oil paintings with my grandfather, who was a landscape painter. And we both did the same paintings. You know, he would tell me, do a brush stroke like this, I would do a brush stroke like that.
His name was Gene Allen. He was a local artist here in El Cajon. I mean, he was just an awesome painter, and he was almost blind. I think he actually acquired the thirst to paint like that.
Mike was always the kid that you worried about your pens. He didn't leave pens out in a jar on the desk, because he'd walk out with every pen in the house, because he didn't think. He was sitting there doing a drawing, and the 12 prints that I gave him of the Brady Civil War prints, pictures of generals and that type of thing, it lit his fire. This style of showing hair and that type of thing, that's where he got his ability to do that detail, was he had something to look at.
I never went to art school. In fact, I got kicked out of the only art class I ever took in high school. They wanted me to draw a shoe, and I drew a robot or something, and I got into an argument. And it didn't discourage me at all. In fact, it did the exact opposite, in that I knew right then that art was what I wanted it to be and not what a teacher wanted it to be. I knew right at that particular moment that art is the options are infinite. You know, no one has control over what it is that I can create. And I think that really stood out at that moment in my life, and became an important, almost a milestone mentally into who I was going to be as a person as well.
He was very angry at them for the stance that they had on how to run a school. Well, he eventually just dropped out, and he finished his high school through a home program. I have to be honest, I was proud of him for doing that. I figured that he was smart enough, he didn't need him. Math was his worst subject. And PE, he didn't do PE well either. He got Fs. When he was in high school, a bunch of him and his friends were on the beach in La Jolla somewhere, smoking. Am I allowed to say that? Smoking some pot, and the police officer stopped them. And well, the friends were saying, "No, we weren't smoking pot." And Mike says, "Okay, we were smoking. You know, what do you want to do?" Well, the police officer took him to the police station, arrested the other two kids that he was with, called me on the phone and told me to come get Mike. That he was the only one out of the bunch. They told him the truth, and I would tell him, "You go to jail. Don't call me. Just get yourself out of jail."
They made me. I mean, there's no greater impact than that. Straight up, you know. I think they did a great job raising me and my sister, for sure. You know, I think we're both really successful in our own ways. In any occasion that you might get a gift, I would usually get some art supplies, to the point where, as a late teenager, on holidays would get stockings full of spray paint and markers and things, and you know, they were really supportive of it. And when I actually did get arrested, I had plans to meet them for dinner that evening, and I still made it for dinner. You know, it was like, whatever, no big deal. You know, even when it actually did, worst case scenario, jump off. It was no big deal.
His ending up in jail or anything, he knew that his mother and father weren't coming down to bail him out of any consequence that he got himself into.
And it had been discussed in general with them, just, you know, a dinner table conversation that...
This is life.
I got booked in the early part of the day, and they released me at like, I think 5 o'clock or so, and I just caught a bus back up to my parents' house and was at dinner right on time, no big deal. And they asked what I'd been doing, and I was in jail. And they didn't believe me at first.
He was a giant. I didn't worry about anything happening to him.
Because he manned up and did his own thing.
In my past, you know, I was into civil rights in the 60s, and I'm embarrassed to this day that I never did anything bad enough to get arrested. So, you know, again, we were just a little unconventional, just a little.
Yeah. And even when I decided to leave architecture school to move here and draw skateboard graphics, they were supportive, at least at face value. They were disappointed.
Remember that, again, we're hard-working, basic middle-class people, so here's your son almost graduating from college, but he has a job in cool California. Oh, no.
He got the job before he graduated.
We were thrilled, believe it or not.
Yeah, I've tattooed my dad and my mom and my sister, too.
I kind of feel like this piece of artwork is like a piece of my brother on my body forever. You know, I love him so much, and the project took about 7 years. He was probably trying to pay me back for years of abuse as a child. And he laughed and said that's kind of true. But it was never about the tattoo, it was always just about hanging out and seeing each other.
I love the rabbits, and I do collect them, but I don't like the cutesy little bunnies crap. I was like really proud of it because my son did it.
Hopi water bird. It is the symbol of life, water. Without water, none of us will exist. And that was why I got that symbol. That represents me.
Hunger. It was prevalent everywhere. Hunger was pushed out of the tall houses and in every dead dog preparation that was offered for sale. The trade signs were all grim illustrations of want. Nothing was represented in a flourishing condition, except the weapons. The cutlers' knives and axes were sharp and bright. The smiths' hammers were heavy, and the gunmaker's stock was murderous.
Hammer down.
You don't even know what it is to be an American until you leave this country. I didn't get American written across my knuckles until after I'd lived in Amsterdam and a bunch of other places overseas over the years, to really understand what it is to be an American and what an opportunity it is to be an American, you know, and how rad it is. I think America started out as a really, really good thing, as a really good idea. I think our forefathers really were smart people, and they tried to put things in place to make it so that the government system was malleable. It ended up getting swallowed up by the big corporations that people like George Washington and Ben Franklin, you know, they knew that there was potential there for that to happen.
So it was some crazy motherfuckers who decided to get in a boat over the wild ass Atlantic. It was super risky, and those same genetics run through our same bloodlines, and probably really dominant too, right? Like they were just like, fuck this government, I'm gonna go establish my own thing. We're this really baby nation, like one of the youngest, right? And we're aggressive as fuck.
We're definitely the big kid on the block, and sometimes we also appear as the biggest bully. I wouldn't necessarily say the most aggressive, but look at the way that we live in this country. We have been fortunate enough to have been born in the most comfortable conditions. So I think we have an obligation, like Kennedy said, to provide for those who are less well off.
America produces more weapons than any other nation on the planet, and it's only because it's good business. You know, there's weapons manufacturing plants in every single state in America, every single one. They make a little something that makes a bomb or a missile or a gun.
War is in our genes. We're looking at the industrial military complex. We want to have the best equipment, the best tactics, the best training. We want to have that superiority over our opponents, so we can dictate the tempo, we can dictate policy. We live by our rules, and our rules say what ought to happen.
Maybe war is just as natural as anything else is breathing this oxygen, because if we go back, and maybe it's just a part of our stupid monkey genes, you know, taking over our territory and marking our little piss boundaries around where, you know, where we bang our women at and store our food and water.
We're going to want to kill to protect what is ours.
I see like all the guys in the military and the women that are wanting to help the country, that feel, you know, obligated in their heart to help. But I feel like they should be helping here. But I sure know that we could use some help on Hyde Street in San Francisco. Got a lot of veterans out there that are high on crack because they're self-medicating because they got fucked up because we sent them out there to somewhere to shoot some people. But does anybody want to talk about that? Nah.
But have we heard anything from our elected officials about this case? No.
We're always taught from a young age that you're trying to get rich. Like that's the ultimate goal, is to get as much as you can, as fast as you can, and then you get this idea that you're going to really enjoy yourself because you'll have all these goods and all these possessions that you'll think will make you happy. That doesn't make anybody happy, and it does sort of enslave you.
Making less money is actually the way to go. If you don't want to support a corrupt government, then live below the poverty level. Then you don't pay federal income tax at all.
I live far below the poverty level, and I have a tremendous amount of freedom to make the choices that I want to make. I got Live Free across the tops of the knuckles, and it's like the reminder to remember the path that I chose. It's easy for us to veer off the path based on greed or consumption needs, or just getting marketed to and getting tricked. Things trick our brains, or maybe we're addicted to buying tennis shoes or something.
Guys, stop. My God, stop. Let's chill on the guns, you know? Let's grow weed.
The weed will save the world. Fuck, maybe, who knows? But then you get that same problem, because then you got some big corporation head of multinational in charge of growing the weed. Then you have problems.
I have an optimistic view of America now, but at the same time I'm going to try to live my own life personally in the best way that I possibly can, with as little impact on the things around me in a detrimental way as I can. You know, take a little responsibility.
We have it so good in this country, and when you get to travel as a soldier and see things and people that are less well off, you really come back to this country and you can kiss the ground.
God bless America, those fucks. No, I don't know. I don't have anything to say about America. I think we're good.
Crush humanity out of shape once more, under similar hammers, and it will twist itself into the same tortured forms. Sow the same seed of religious control and oppression over again, and it will surely yield the same fruit according to its kind. I am the resurrection and the life, saith the Lord.
Oh my God, please help me knee deep in the river trying to get clean. He says wash your hands, get out the stains, but you best believe, boy, there's hell to pay. Yeah, you best believe, boy, there's hell to pay. Saying, oh my God, please help me waist deep in the river, can you hear my plea? He says,
I grew up Catholic, which is the first step to being an atheist. In Western society, we're often taught, we're always taught about Greek myths and the Egyptian myths and these things, but they're always myths, informatively presented as being false. I came to realize that the story of Jesus Christ were these same stories that had been told throughout humans' entire history. Then modern day Christianity must be a fairy tale as well, right?
I like what you said, that like being a Catholic is the first step in being an atheist. It's very true, because Catholicism is very literally that. It didn't come about organically. A group of guys sat down at a table and transferred polytheism into a different picture with less orgies and stuff, and so it is disappointing in a lot of ways. But it's kind of like Greek mythology.
What changed me, what put a stick in the spoke, sort of, was science and physics, really. These energies that make up every single thing, including me, this leather couch, these fake skulls, we're all the same.
Like, it's easy to believe, but it's frustrating in other ways, because it doesn't explain the atrocity and roughness of the world.
But there's something that does happen. Well, no, we don't really just die. That these energies don't become destroyed because they're no longer in this perceived version of a body. In that, I find a spirituality.
You hear some of these physicists talk, and they're thinking on a level that makes like smoke come out of my ears.
Yeah,
like,
right.
I respect it.
Yeah.
But then they're also saying, in many ways, I have no idea what the fuck's going on.
What connected me was noticing the similarities in Buddhist philosophy to physics. For instance, I have aggression problems. I express that in like aggressive, like mean, kind of dickish type of behavior. I've learned a lot from Mike Giant, just learning to understand that all these emotions are built up inside of us.
All right, the first thing is, it's wrong to departmentalize Buddhism. It's not like a thing that's separate from everything. I'm already starting to sound Buddhist, I suppose. That's funny. It's like, Buddhism is just a way of understanding everything. It's a way of training the mind and the heart and the body so that you're at ease with the natural world and in the flow of the natural world. And in doing so, there comes this great bliss. I started to recognize I was dissatisfied, like just a general sense of dissatisfaction with life. And it happened when I moved here. I had a great job, everything was cool, but was still just like not amazingly stoked. You know, like I felt like I should be a lot happier. I got some Buddhist books, taught me about like meditative breathing and chakras and stuff, like Hindu stuff too. It's like, yeah, I can just sit in the meditative state and see the grass. Not have to be like, oh, that blade of grass is greener than that one, or that one's taller than that one, or why is that one like that, or ooh, there's a bunch of weeds mixed in right there, or, you know? You're like, oh, I get it. I get it. An angry thought can arise, and you can continue to feed it until you're angry, and then someone says hi, and you go, fuck you, you know? It's all here. It all started in your mind. Chill on that shit, because they know that anger sucks. I know that nobody likes to see me mad. You know? Nobody wants to see that. You know? It's just kind of, it's unnecessary, you know? And it's kind of rude, you know?
The Buddhism philosophy is if you have too much thing, like many material, you have more worry. You can be more worried. So Buddhism is go to renunciation. It's go to renounce. For example, if you have a new car, if you park on the side road, or you get a worry, or somebody come and crash your car, what's gonna happen? Or somebody break your window, like you got to worry. But Buddhism is if you don't have anything, you don't have to worry. But if you dress up like a tie with nice shoes, if you wear a nice pants, your mind is something changed. Because the clothes bring your mind like a little bit higher spirit. So the Buddhism is humble. I think artists, they are more similar with nature. And they translate to the nature. When they get tired, they just come to the nature to feel better. You know, to clean their mind, you know, to get a little peace in their mind, to ready for next week. So I think art and nature is very connected.
This dude Giant's a toy.
That guy that got up with the Sharpies is the shit.
Yeah,
though.
this is really nice right here, though.
Speeds.
You ain't buffing over that.
And I left this without any hard lines, just in case.
Yeah.
I like it like how it is.
I like it too.
But then we could do a spray varnish over the top, which will.
That'd be nice.
It'll
pop the black.
This black is a mix of black gouache and black Indian ink.
Right.
Just
okay.
like an equal half and half, and it'll mute all the color together. It'll all have the same sheen at the end. I was thinking if you wanted to go in and do some details of some type of thing in her
Maybe a
bandana,
pattern
or like
something.
like a little detail on her on the brooch.
Right.
You could get fresh with it. And just sort of left that open. I put a little whitewash in there just to give it some little tonal curvature. It's real simple. I just did this pink wash and then one dark shade and then a little tiny gray wash right there.
Maybe even the toothbrush speckly thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I've heard my mom ask me, do you know who so-and-so is? I've seen their name all over the damn neighborhood. I don't like it one bit. Can you find out who that is?
My friend's mom caught the mural that I did next to the ballpark downtown. And she's like, why does it gotta be so scary? Before she even knew that it was mine,
That's
that she's
awesome.
known me my whole life, you know?
That's the best kind of shit to hear.
I catch a little flack when I put the little curve in the eyebrow that just represents I'm a little pissed off. What's it gotta be so mean for?
Skulls too, they don't like, you know? It's like, that's my thing to opt for. If I'm not gonna write my name real big, I'm just gonna do a big skull, and then neighbors are just as terrified of a skull as a big bubble letter or something. But if a kid paints like a cute little guy, you know, dancing with a cute little dog or something, you know, it's like, it's all good. Just because the kid wants to write his name big as fucking fancy, that, oh, no. Because I have friends that are more like into just painting things on the street. And when the police come, they're like, hey, stop doing that graffiti. And they're like, I'm not, dude, I'm drawing a deer. You know, and they're like, oh, that's okay.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's fucking insanity.
It's super awesome, especially in places where there's tons of graffiti. If as soon as you say, oh, no, I'm not doing graffiti, man. Oh, well, great. Fuck, hook it up.
Wow. Fucking painting a deer, y'all.
Dude, does this look like graffiti? Let me show you the drawing. Relax, I'm gonna hook up the eagle up here. I'll put your name next to the eagle, dude.
What is your location?
Like, I was ready to fight that dude in the alleyway over in the mission.
Yeah.
That kept creeping around. I was just waiting to see if he pulled a knife out of his waistband.
Guy down there that was when we were filming?
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, he was fine, I could tell. He didn't have that vibe to him. Guys just go back there to get high.
What is your location?
I've been working on it, trying to keep ideas instead of beliefs, because
oh yeah,
getting stuck in those belief systems, you almost have to fight any opposing belief. When you
right.
get structured into that, even from say a non-believer standpoint, once you
Right.
become a non-believer per se, you
Sure.
almost have to take on certain responsibilities
Right.
that maybe might not be that important to you.
Once your own ideas become principles, that's when you'll kill for them, you know? And that's terrible. Because really, principles are still just creative ideas.
But just since you set up this belief structure, you kind of have to run down that little bit of pathway that you set yourself. Where it seems like ideas have little
plot line.
little Swiss cheese holes in them that you could squeeze out of if you need to.
I can't think of a time when I've heard one of my Buddhist teachers say, I believe, or I believe in, it's always, my understanding is, you know, or from what I can ascertain. I tried hard as shit to tattoo you correctly today, even though it's the fucking hardest goddamn thing I know how to do. It's like, oh, it's Sunday, it's time to go do a big-ass project, you know?
Well, you're pretty good at it.
Here we go.
My sister, she's gonna go to the church tonight. And they keep telling me, Lord, boy, you know what you're doing ain't right. Oh, Lord, where are they going there?
I ain't really trying to work. I'm trying to live, you know? I think the working class aspect can come from the fact that we're actually participating in the commercial marketplace, much like a regular worker would. But as an artist, you're kind of like, you know, fuck you, I ain't gonna work for you. Why the hell would I work for you? I'm gonna work for myself. I'm gonna draw some stuff, I'm gonna sell it. I don't need you.
I think a lot of artists create things as a way to stay alive forever. It's something that makes us leave a piece of ourselves behind when we're not on this earth anymore. A lot of times portraiture over history has always been like regal people, you know, high pop culture, those sorts of things. And it's kind of nice to also glorify, you know, a blue collar worker that works 40 hours a week, leads in a worthwhile life.
the best of times, it was the worst of times. We were all going direct to heaven. We were all going direct the other way.
Who you have or could possibly bleed me?
So much laugh.